Welcome to the Modern Day Trader podcast, where we bring you raw, real, and unfiltered insights into the world of trading and investing. This season marks an exciting new chapter as we introduce our new case traders, industry experts, and innovators who will share their journeys, lessons, and strategies. Whether you're a seasoned trader or just starting out, our goal is to inspire, educate, and help you level up. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the mindset, discipline, and grind that defines the modern day trader.
This is actually the first pod for this year. We actually a month late because I think boys were still getting organized in Jan.
Yeah.
But it's good to be back. Excited for this sort of series of interviews. And I think, like you said, purpose is really to kind of showcase true kind of like South African traders, because if we're being honest, the industry is kind of just in shambles, bro. Scams are just running rampant. I think we're disrupting that with what we're doing here and shorts and daily nuggets and whatnot. So I think the first guest is someone you guys may know. We started our journey together way back, 2017. And I think I speak for myself and Marcy when he's really kind of paved the way for what we kind of believe is possible, like in the space. And it's like constantly just like push the barriers and inspired us to just dream bigger, constantly just chase bigger goals. So, ladies and gentlemen, Nkululeko Mfeka.
That's
how I practice that, bro.
What an introduction, Sam. I'm like, Jesus. Nah, gentlemen, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me on the show. I think, Sam, when we first spoke about you guys starting MDT, I think this was one of the segments that I was always pushing for. So yeah, shout out, gents.
So maybe just start with who you are. Tell us a bit about yourself, maybe how your journey began and how it's kind of progressed from there. In terms of how you started, how it got going.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Nkululeko Mfeka, based in Durban currently. And I think for the last few years, I've always felt like there were two versions of myself. The version who, works for my family's construction business based here in Durban. And then the second version now, a 200K funded trader with E8. So yeah, I feel like there's always been that fight about who gets to be, I don't know, kind of at the forefront, like which version of myself am I going to pick essentially. And yeah, I think my biggest goal for this year is to go full-time trading. I think it's time to take that step and to kind of really grow and throw myself into something. Because right now it's always been about balancing the two. And yeah, I think I'm at this crossroad now where it's like, you know what, we've achieved this much. How much more can we achieve when, you fully throw yourself into something? So yeah, I think that's me now. The version of myself that I can say for this year is the one who just wants to keep achieving more in the space.
And then I just interrupt you there.
Yeah.
Just for those of you who weren't paying attention, I said 100K, that's USD. Please don't get so that's 4 million rand. I'm not talking about a 2,500 rand that we flipping to 50,000. Not there. I just wanted to add some context. Maybe thought that they heard wrong. No, you heard correct. You heard right. No, so sorry.
Yeah, Sam, I think you just touched on something there, which I think, with the flipping accounts, I think that was a big part of my journey, and Sam will know. like anyone, I can't remember the exact moments where I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this Forex thing. But I know that Sam and I lived together in Cape Town for a while. And somewhere along, those lines when we lived there, that idea came out and we chased it together. But obviously the thing that drew us to, trading is the lifestyle that we saw being portrayed online. But I think the longer you stay in this game and, the more that you chase it, and your why has to become a lot more meaningful than just that. So I think over the years, that's what's kept us, in the game, still being able to chase this thing, is the why has changed. Back in 2016 when we started our first course. I remember it was the Sunday Leshezi course, Sam, if I'm not mistaken, 2016 or early 2017.
Forex. Early 2017, I think it's Q1 2017.
Okay, yeah, we started that Sunday Leshezi course, and I think that's where, being exposed to this thing, they didn't really teach us a quote unquote strategy, but it was more just exposing you to everything. And I think we spent kind of the next 2 years just trying to put everything together in a way that made sense for us. Making money wasn't even a thought at that point because we still had no idea what we were doing. And then 2018 came and we did the BFG course with Sam as well. And I felt like that for me kind of, started to cement a few things which I thought I knew, but still didn't really know as much as, you should have or could have. And then I think 2021 came and I bought the WSA course, the one by Q Banks. I think a few people will know Q Banks. I bought that 2021. But even then, I bought this thing thinking it would be the key that unlocked everything. But like anything else in life, it didn't work unless I worked. And when I reflected back on it, I only started taking that course seriously 2023. I'd had it for 2 years, and you watch the videos, but you're not really comprehending what you're watching. And then when I was like, you know what, I need to get better, and I have this thing which I thought was putting me on the right track. Let me just do it properly. And I think that's where the switch was for me, was in 2023 when I decided to take that course properly. And all those aha moments that I had, I've had so many, and I still have them today. Well, I think from 2023 onwards. And I think that was kind of the catalyst to kind of bring me where I am now and just wanting more. And I think that community that Q Banks has created, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it really keeps you accountable. You see people doing big things, and yeah, you can't not be inspired. So yeah, and I think, sorry, Sam. And so that's kind of the timeline. But along that timeline, I spent a lot of the time flipping accounts. This is where I'm touching back on what Sam said earlier. And that really wasn't sustainable, trying to grow 1.5 to 10K. And I think Sam was the one who was like, let's try the funded accounts. And I think the biggest beef that I had with funded accounts when I started was my risk management was out the window. Like, I was a full margin, on those flipping accounts. But yeah, the funded account route, it forces you to know your story. And yeah, I think that was kind of the biggest thing that helped me, was those rules that they set. And yeah, just playing within those parameters.
Yeah, NK, it's actually good to hear your story, and I've heard it from Sam because you guys pretty much started out the same, and I was counting on my fingers now. It's 2017 to 2025. That's 9 years in the game, and I know personally that when I start to speak about like my trading journey, I pretty much discount that first couple years because I wasn't really like trading, bro. So I'm gonna go all the way back to, let's say, 2021 when you started Q Banks' course. You had a 2-year period of, listen, I took the course, watched the videos. I kind of know the strategy. Then until 2023, you started obviously taking it seriously, and you you started to hold yourself accountable to the fact that, listen, like I've put the time in, and I just need to do it a bit more, and I actually need to hold myself accountable. So in that period between 2021, I feel like there's going to be a twofold question. In that period between 2021 and 2023, I know that you were flipping accounts, and I know that you mentioned it wasn't necessarily the most sustainable thing. But what the first question is, what was that flip of the switch, or what was that pivotal point where you in 2023 said, okay, listen, I need to start taking this thing seriously? And then also at that point you had your strategy and you knew what worked. It's just that you were flipping accounts, probably blowing a couple here and then flipping a couple, and like making profit from a few. What was that pivotal moment in 2023 that made you change and say, okay, no, I need to take this thing seriously? And then number two, after you started to take it seriously in 2023, and we know that, as I mentioned, you in the Cuban's cause, when you started your funding journey with E8, what was that particular strategy? And I know you mentioned risk management, so we want to jump on that too. What was that change in mindset and philosophy change and paradigm shift to then get you funded and then to like get you to a point where you can get withdrawals? So that's a two-folded question, and I feel like I'm pretty interested in just hearing that journey and shift from uh, flipping accounts to then also mentally, and that paradigm shift to then getting to a point where you can like have risk management and you have a strategy, but it's just about mentally shifting and exercising that discipline.
Okay. Okay. No, great question, Marcy. Um, when I look back on it, I think the biggest thing, like you say, you flip accounts, you lose some here, you make some money here. Um, a lot of it was unpredictable. But then also we know with trading, guys, it's a probability of, you know, something happening, like it's study win or you lose. Like that's the probability. It's 50-50. But I think I was just getting to a point where I was losing like 3-4 times in a row, and those losses hurt a lot more than they would hurt now because management was just out the window. I was realizing that my confidence was taking a hit. I was taking too long to, you know, recover emotionally from those losses. And I was like, you know what? I cannot keep going down this road. I was like, essentially I know what I'm doing, but I'm not following any plan strict enough, you know, for my edge to, you know, materialize over a certain period of time. Like it working for a week and, you know, me having a great week means nothing if, you know, I'm not making it to the rest of the month because, you know, I've taken too many losses. So I just got to the point where, you know what, I was fed up with myself, the biggest thing. And I was like, I just have to change. And even making that change, it was like, I was starting the funded and, you know, you find yourself relapsing and going back to what you always know. But that's why I spoke about the accountability. It's like, you know what, I'm not going to make it going down this road. Doing the same thing and expecting different results, it's not going to get me anywhere. So yeah, it was a weird, I think I wrote down the date somewhere. I just have to find it, where I literally wrote down the dates. And I was like, today is the day where I just felt that thing go. And I was like, I need to stop flipping. I'm going to try this funded route, no matter how frustrating it is, talking about 1%. And you know, 1% is, it's crazy. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, it's not something I can do. But yeah, my strategy, what I realized is that my strategy didn't change much. It's just that the only thing I had to change and work on was my risk management. Keeping myself in the game long enough to have that win, which was going to, you know, keep me positive for the week. So yeah, gents,
And
I don't know if
I
I
think
answered it
that's
fully.
you did, and I just want to touch on something you said, which is maybe something a lot of traders struggle with, because it's the same thing as like you have your plan, you have your strategy, but if you give that to a beginner or a novice trader, they're not going to get the same results as you. And I think that's what a lot of newer traders or traders who haven't gotten to that point where they realize that it's really about managing your behavior and like managing your emotion, regardless of like the plan. It's you have this plan. Are you able to execute on this plan when you're at break even, when you're in drawdown and you're starting to sweat and you're starting to worry and you're getting closer and closer to either blowing an account or reaching a drawdown limit. But also on the other end of the spectrum, when things are going really well and you're close to maybe a first payout or passing a challenge, you go through like this whole range of emotions, and all that really matters is can you execute on the plan consistently and like show a certain level of restraint regardless of like how you're feeling. And I think it's that thing that keeps you in the game long enough. It's when you are winning, you don't want to start self-sabotaging because you think you're going to keep winning. And then you start your view or perception of this plan that actually does work starts to change because now it's like you're just seeing opportunity everywhere and so close. And the same thing, when you're in a losing streak and now you're scared and don't want to take a trade, but it's like the plan hasn't changed. Said it, it's like you can have 50% strike rate, 50-50. It's you don't know what the sequence of those results is going to be, but you know that over 10, 20, 100,000 trades, 50% of them are going to be winners, 50% of them or it could be 60-40 or 70-30, whatever it is. You may have to go through 5 losses before you go through 5 wins. Could be 2, could be whatever it is. But I think it's like you're saying, you got to that point where you're like, no, the fluctuation that is too much. And I think I wanted to highlight that because that's so important because it feels like I went through something similar where it's like just have to decide.
Yeah.
Not this thing up and down. You have one good week and think you pay it, and then give it all back. So even in a day, you can give back 2 solid good weeks of trading. So I think you did answer the first question because that was.
Yeah, that's exactly it, bro. I think at some points, not saying you kind of know everything technically, but you know enough to make money in the market. And I think the last 2 years has just been about the psychological work more than anything. It's your psychological that ends up needing a lot more work than your markups or what you see on the charts. So yeah, 100%, Sam. It's that gutter principle we spoke about like last week. Is how fed up are you with yourself until you're like, I have to change, otherwise I'm going to be caught in the cycle. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then I think question 2, Marcy, you just asked me on the strategy.
On the strategy.
Yeah. Let me just touch on that as well. I think I also gravitated towards WSA because even before I joined them, my strategy relied heavily on market structure and price action. So when I did the Q Banks course, and obviously I was introduced to the Confluence strategy that he uses, it kind of felt like everything was being, tied up together. Like it was the thing that was going to put me on track to being consistent and profitable. So yeah, over the years, I think I've just kind of refined what he's taught. And so now my current strategy includes market structure. Still, I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's just, understanding your bias, noticing shifts and breaks in structure, because I trade a lot of continuations. I feel like that's where a lot of my winning setups are, when I'm flowing with the trend and I'm not trying to, predict this wick reversal out of nowhere. Just rather let the market do its thing, and then catch the retracement. But at the same time, it's patience. It works on your patience a lot, because as soon as market opens, find this itch. I used to, want to take a trade as soon as the market opens. And now, you kind of refine it in your strategy that I have to just try trade only NY session. And even when you take that, you think you're going to trade NY session Monday, but your setup might only play on Wednesday. So I think the biggest thing for me is limiting the amount of losses I take until I find the perfect trade, which I found that I would take 3 losses at 1% each, be 3R down, and then the trade that I wanted to take played out on Wednesday or Thursday, and I make 8%. End of the week on 5, where I was just like, I could have just ended on 8. So yeah, the patience is a big one there. And then another thing is moving averages and fib. I use moving average as a dynamic support, and then my fib is to will help me to see the retracement. Like I said, I trade continuation, so a breakout has to happen, and then my fib will help me to kind of pinpoint where the retracement will be. Confluence, where's my moving average, where's the break and retest, what zone is it, PRZ level, is it coming at like 38.2, 50, or 61.8? So yeah, fib and moving average, and then time frame correlation. Q is really big on time frame correlation. So like if we see a setup on H4, I know that I have to go to M30 because it's going to be a lot clearer, or then M15. If you see a setup on M30, I now have to go to M15 and M5. So it's like certain timeframes work well together. So timeframe correlation is, especially with US30, the way that it moves is that sometimes it can break a zone on H4, and you think that H4 retest is going to come, but then it will retest on M30, and it keeps going. So yeah, time frame correlation is a big one, just knowing what time it is, where you are in the markets. Yeah, I think that's kind of how my strategy goes. There's also minor things that help me along the way, like exhaustion zones and wicks and so on. But yeah, very much just price action.
NK, just to jump on the time frame correlation. So you're saying you're looking at the H4 and you see, let's say, for instance, you see a correlation zone of 61.8 fib. Then how does that jumping down to the 30-minute or the 15-minute look? Does that then look like your same setup on the higher time frame, where you're looking for your fib on the 15-minute, or you're just looking for a break and retest of a key level? What is it that you're specifically looking for on the lower time frame once it hits your correlation zone on the higher time frame?
Okay, let's say we had a break of a H4 zone. Break of an H4 zone. I'm going to go down to my M30. I would have plotted, on the H4, I would have plotted my fib, my long-term fib, to show my overall bias. Where am I expecting this thing to go? Go into my lower time frame. Then on my lower time frame, I'm looking for kind of 3 things. Where's my moving average? Because if my moving average is close, and it's close, if my lower time frame moving average is close to where it broke the zone on the higher time frame, and the higher time frame fib has a PRZ level, so we've got price reversal zones. 23.6 is a continuation, 38.2 is the most aggressive, 50, 61.8, and then 77.8 and 88.6. So if it's somewhere there on the higher time frame, and then I plot another lower time frame fib on the H1 or 2H, and there's another PRZ zone coming there. A lot of the time, I don't know if I can share my screen, guys, just so you can see how my chart looks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just so you can see how my chart looks, I think I put together some of my trades I took in the last 2 weeks. If you look at this first trade, I don't know if I mentioned earlier on that I only trade US30. So if you look where my one on the fib is, so I'll plot from the impulse, where the impulse starts to where it ends. So I plotted from 43292, my fib. If I look at it, ends at about 43.8 at these highs. And then if we look where the retest is, from the impulse, we had a break. I'm looking for a continuation. So I plotted my fib, and I see that there's confluence around 78.6 where the break happened. And my moving average, this looks like my M30. My moving average on my M30 is approaching the price at the break of structure, and we're 78.6 is, which is a price reversal zone. I'm expecting a retest there, buys, and then I also use my fib to map out where my TP1 and 2 is. And that's our minus 27 and minus 61.8 zones. So this, for me, this is textbook. Break, retest, touch of my dynamic support, buys, US30. If I look at another one.
Then man says he's not looking for wick entries.
So that's
how do you enter that NK? Do you look for like do you go on the low time frames? Because I know the previous one was a 1 hour time frame. So you were looking at the 1H chart. And you caught a hell of weak entry.
So it was my fib was plotted on the 1 hour, but my entry was taken there on the M30. And with that one, usually we look for bullish or bearish variations to help us enter. But with that one there, I didn't wait for candle to play out. That was more anticipation more than anything, because I had 3 things that lined up. So for me, it's just like with those, I just take them. Like,
you believe it's going up, and you just take it.
Yeah, and that one I just take it.
And it's market order, or you use limit or stop orders?
I'm watching it. I execute.
Market order. Gotcha.
Market order.
Gotcha.
Market order. I really don't like plotting. I don't really do orders. Sure. I'd rather manually place
market
a trade.
That's true. And then so now you're in the trade. What does your management look like in terms of when you're going to break even, as well as how you kind of look to set targets? Is it kind of like a fixed R multiple thing, or do you use structure, or do you kind of just keep kind of follow what price is doing and look for signs of reversal before you manually close out? Or is it a manual TP?
So a lot of the time, because US30 tends to fluctuate a lot, I'll put half risk only once I've made about 2%. Like once it's running 2% in profit. Then I'll do half risk, and then I'll only do break even once I'm 3%. Because the way this thing can fluctuate, especially around New York Open, where it can fluctuate 200 points, even when you're 200 points in profit, it'll come all the way back to break even, might even go a bit negative and then carry on. So you kind of just have to give it its room to breathe. And then in terms of profit taking, I prefer, like I do set my TP, and I'll always prefer for it to reach TP2. So I'll only ever close manually if it's going towards TP2 and then comes back below TP1, the TP1 level. Then I'll just tend to close out, because then I just don't feel comfortable being in the trade anymore. But a lot of the time, when I close out, I don't want to close out less than 4% is kind of my if I can say my R multiple that I'll go for at a minimum is 4%. But yeah, on average, a lot of my trades are about 6 to 8%.
And is that
And
6 to
then
8%, assuming you're risking 1%? And
I
is your
risk,
risk?
I risk 1% a lot of, I never go less than one. I might go less than one on a position where I'll maybe take 0.75. But a lot of the times I find my edge is being able to scale in. So I'll find myself scaling in for another 0.75. So a lot of the times I'll have at least, like on a move like this, I'll have 1.5% in a lot of the time.
Jeez. That comes in, yeah. Yeah, that's what I find. I struggle with that. Even on trades that have done really well, I find I'm only getting like one entry. I don't think, actually, to be honest, I've ever had a successful scale in the years I've been trading. When I have tried to scale in, it kind of just stops me out. So I have attempted to, but I don't think there's a position where it's ran for like a good 4-5%, and I've actually gotten a scale in there, which is maybe something I need to work on, because that's what I've heard a lot from guys that I watch and whatnot, and now where it's when a position's a winner, it's like you kind of want to double down on that and like scale into that as it's running.
Because a scaling is what's, I think as a trader you understand, making 4% a week on a 200K account, you're doing a lot. Even making 4% in a month, you're comfortable. But the scaling is what's going to give you the 8 to 10%. Those big days that come, a lot of the times come from when I'm scaling in. And I tend to have maybe one successful scale in a month. That's kind of been my rate at the moment. Is I'll have a good scale in, and a good scale in is usually about 10% in a month and then that week, once I have those, I found that I'm usually not away from the charts, but I won't want to take a trade for a week or so, because it's just like, let me just enjoy it and kind of just be away. Because in the past, what I would do is I'd have a big day and then I would literally give it back the very next day. Because it's that thing we're talking about, is how's then your psyche when you've had a really good day. And for me, when I had a really good day, I found that all my rules would just go out the window. So on a big day now, I just kind of want to chill and enjoy it. Even if I give back a bit on the next trade, but at least enjoy it for a day or two, or for the rest of the week. If it happens on a Wednesday, be like, okay, I'm out till next week. Just end the week where we are.
Not at all. Yeah, that's super clean. Is there another chart that you're gonna share, buddy? Or
yeah, this is another one.
Okay, I'll wait.
So with this one was also a bit more anticipation. If we look here, so this is the 23.6 zone. So 23.6, a lot of the times, if you can't break it, it's signaling a continuation. So it's going to keep going. So we see 1, 2, and Q Bank says when a pair is consolidating, the next, and it makes, it's found support. And then after that, it does a higher low within that consolidation zone. A lot of the time it's going to move from there. So I had kind of this downtrend line, the green, I saw it made a higher low. So I was anticipating it to break. And this one as well broke to TP2. There's been a lot of buys recently. I think I've got one more. Yeah, I do. This one was more of a what can we call this? A reversal. So if we see it fell the week before, and then I think this was on Monday last week, broke out of it breached the what is this, lower high, and then I was in the buys. But with this one, this was a lot more anticipation than it being like a textbook trade. As soon as it breached the lower highs, I was like, okay, we're gonna go test the highs that it just dropped from earlier. So this a lot more anticipation, but then also US30, it's 80% highs. Even when it does sell off, you find that does retrace quite quickly. So yeah, that's just kind of just explaining how my strategy works. We see it's a lot moving average, a lot of break and retests. Yeah, just try to keep it as simple as I can.
Oh, clean, danko. So we've done a bit of a deep dive on strategy, talking about funding, and I think the challenges that had that allowed you to then really like to the strategy and take responsibility, I think, more than anything for like your results, forced you to recognize where you were holding yourself back really from, I think, some of the success that you've seen now. So very keen to kind of know, so you mentioned at the beginning that you're trying to go full time into the charts. You work at the moment as for family business construction, and so you're kind of living these two lives. Like all Marcy there, accounting during the day and even financial planning. But the charts are kind of what it's like. So kind of just keen to hear about what your funding goals are, in terms of like where you can take this, like even say this year, what are your funding goals? How does this align with your goal to become funded? And I think so that's kind of the first part of it. And there'll be people listening to this who are on a similar journey, and also want to go full time into trading. Don't want to be working a 9 to 5. How are you making that transition into becoming a full time funded trader? Because I know obviously there's attempted to in the past, and I think I know you're trying to take more structured role to it now. So I think that could help anyone who's also kind of looking to make that switch, just to give them an idea of what they should be thinking about as they kind of try to make what's really like quite a big life or career kind of shift. One, what are your funding goals? How does that relate to your goal of becoming full time? How are you really preparing for like this transition, become full time?
Yeah, perfect. So like I said, currently I'm on 200K. My goal for this year, I have a goal for where I want to be kind of at the beginning of Q3 to take me to the rest of the year is 400K. I kind of want to double the one that I have currently. And with E8, the biggest account that they offer is 400. So I'm kind of conflicted on how I want to do that. The way I've gone about it currently is merging 100K accounts, because I felt like I was comfortable seeing the numbers around, trading 100K accounts. Even moving up to 200, it takes a bit of a mental shift. When like you either holding drawdown or you're holding a winning trade, the numbers look a lot bigger now, and it's how do you manage your emotions seeing that number on the screen. I kind of just want to give myself the next 6 months, just get comfortable with the account that I'm trading, slowly scale it up, but definitely quarter 3 onwards be on a 400K account. And I feel like with the percentage of growing an account that size, my goal is staying the same. My percentage goals, that is the amount that I take on a trade, my, not wanting to close less than 4%, whether I'm trading a 200K or 400K. I don't want that to change. So I feel like that will be able to manage, the emotional aspect of it, is just the strategy not changing, doubling down on that. So yeah, that's kind of where I want to take my account, and I feel like at that number I'll be, comfortable to rely on trading, as a full-time thing. And then just the preparation to going full-time. Like Sam mentioned, I tried this before twice, and I think it was before kind of the psychological work that I've done now over the 2 years. Was still at that stage where I was flipping accounts. When you lose, you have 3 losses in a row. Just that thing of, I'm losing money that I really need to pay bills. So at that time, I was not equipped to deal with that, that mental battle at that time. Every loss felt personal, where it's not how it's meant to be. You need to be sharp. You need to be, on your A game. Especially with US30, I feel like if you're not on it, if you don't notice a shift quick enough, if you don't, not on the pulse, it can really take you out. And I felt like I was not in it. And I think now where I am, kind of, quite confident in the strategy that I have. Still, you have those doubts all the time, but it's like I'm keeping myself in the game a lot longer than I was before. But a thing that I think doing differently this time is I want to settle my living expenses before I even take that step. So my rent must be paid up for the year, just so that I can trade from a place where, there's a lot more peace of mind. I'm a lot more comfortable. I'm not making any rash decisions. So I think this time around, the biggest factor that has changed is just putting the structure in place to allow me to let the strategy work and not need it to work in 2 weeks because I had bills to pay at the end of the month. So yeah, I think if that's the biggest advice I can give is, just give yourself the time to set up the things that you need to set up properly. Don't add the unnecessary stress. Just allow yourself the time, because this thing takes time, not like people portray online. It actually does take a lot of time.
And a quick one, for those who are interested, what's been your biggest goal today that you funded accounts?
So my biggest withdrawal to date has been just short of $8,200. So it's about 150K. I've done 6 figures a few times. And I think I haven't broken past that yet. I think it's something that I really do need to break past. So yeah, I'm hoping by the end of quarter 1, I'm doing a 5-figure withdrawal dollars. And then another trading goal for this year is doing, sounds crazy, but it's 100K month this year. It's madness. It's madness. But
it's 2 million in a month.
It's madness, but I think I've been chasing that goal for I don't know how many years. When I started trading, I was like, I need to make 100,000 Rand, and I've done that. Now the next thing only seems fair to be $100,000. I say this year, I don't know, it might happen 2026 June, I don't know, but I'm gonna put myself in the position to do it. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of my biggest goals for this year.
And I know Marcy's got sorry Marcy, just last one from me, but I know you got a few questions. But you just going back to your goal of scaling up to $400,000, that EX limits. Over the past year, we've seen madness in the prop firm space. A lot of liquidity risk, people getting payouts denied, prop firms falling, the numbers. So what are your thoughts around kind of diversifying across prop firms? So you've got a 200K E8. Are you thinking about 100K at TMO, another 100 at Alpha Capital, maybe just 200 at TMO, just so that your kind of risk is kind of diversifying that way and lower the risk in that sense? Where if E8 for whatever reason does fall, it's like your whole 400 DAO doesn't go down with it, and at least you've still got some funding somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a good one, Sam, because I was one of the people who lost the funded accounts on my Forex funds. And I lost it pending a withdrawal. I was so touched. It was going to be my first withdrawal. It was $1,200 withdrawal in 2021. You know, it was going to be my first payout. And then E8 fell. So I think the biggest thing for me, Sam, I don't think so much of diversifying across prop firms. I want to build my own 100K accounts, live accounts, outside of the prop firm structure. I think that's the biggest goal for me right now. Obviously, prop firms give us access to capital at a fraction of the price. But I don't know. I just want to trade my own money. I'm kind of using the prop firm routes to be able to do that, is to just put 100K in a live account, and I know those are my funds. Obviously now the challenge outside of that, a good thing for me in the prop firm space was the risk management. I know that's another battle I'm going to have to go through when I get there, but yeah, definitely 100K in my own account. That's kind of the goal for me.
Before we go into the next section, and have one last question for you. The big ass goal of 100K in a month, like what is the plan to get there, bro? Because my initial thought is then, okay, if I get $1 million funding, that's just 10%, and I can do that in a month. You know what I mean? But like you're saying you're not necessarily going to diversify funds, so that means you're going to be sitting with a 400K, and you're really going to have to make like, what's that, 20%, 30% on the 400K? How much is that? 10% 40 DAO, 20% 80 DAO, so 25%.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to make 25% in a month. So then what's the plan just to get to that goal in 1 month?
So Marcy, 400K, the way I look at it, 400K, let's whip out the calculator. If I'm at 400K funded, let's say 400K times 6%, about 24K times 4. That will take me close to 96. My goal any given time in a week is to make between 4 and 8%.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't reach that all the time. You kind of fluctuate. But 4 to 5% off US30, about 1 trade a week. So the numbers, it's not that terrible once you're sitting with the 400 or 500K accounts. Is if I can make 5% a week off 1 trade, proper risk management, and that's just 1 trade, not scaling in at all. Personally, it doesn't look that hard. Not that
it's a 25% in a month.
I've never done it. No, wait.
To answer your question.
I think this is another part of it. Is you have to be fucking delusional. Like I need to be.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it's 100K. I think what makes it sound like a lot is when you convert it, but the number is 100. I think the thing that I tell myself is that I've done this thing in my home currency. And yes, it did take a long time, but now surely I can do it. Like, not even surely, it's like I can do it. It's just a matter of time.
Exactly.
And I think that's the delusion that you have to have. It's literally the way that I've looked at it, to not overcomplicate it, not make it seem like it's just huge task. It is a huge task, don't get me wrong. But I just tell myself it's 5% a week on a 400K, or even on a 500K account. 4 to 500K. It's 5%. Just look at it as 5%.
5%, bro. 5% inside.
Bro, you need to get 8% to pass a
Yeah.
phase one funded account. And a lot of people pass 2 to 3 phase challenges in a week. Like sometimes making the percentage, the opportunity is there. But it's like a different battle when money is actually on the line and you're trading the real accounts. That's where now all these emotional aspects come in. But the thing is, it's not impossible because you see people doing it all the time. So that's just the one thing. I think you just need to tell yourself, it's just dumb it down. It's just 5%. It's just one trade. I'm going to keep telling myself, I'm going to be telling myself the same thing 6 months from now when I haven't touched it. it's just 5%. But eventually when it happens, I'll be like, yeah, it was just 5%. And
just 5%.
It was just 5%, bro.
Plan doesn't change at the end of the day. It's just, you're not overthinking it, I think. And that's where it gets a lot of people. Think about the value, and you start to overthink it, and you start to force a trade, and then it's Thursday, Friday in a week where you've taken a loss or you haven't taken a trade, and now you take a trade and you want to make that 5-8%. So you find you won't take a trade that week. Next week you'll hit 2 5% trades, and
2 5%.
It's like it works weird in that way. Weird, but
that's the biggest thing for me, Sam, that I had to change my way of thinking. Was I now jot down the 4 to 5 weeks that happened in a month, and I actually look, and when I count, okay, maybe I had 2% here or 0.5 here. This week I had 7%, and I actually now count it out, and I'm like, actually, it was a good month, and not just going off of shit. I just lost money this week, or I didn't touch my 5%. But when you just zoom out and you look back, you find that okay, you might not have reached the goal, that 5% the way you wanted to, but just doing a clean 5% every week. But over 3 weeks, I should have made 15%. I'm currently sitting on maybe 13, 12%. It's like it's actually it's been a good month.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think just zooming out just in total actually like always gives you that just perspective on how good you're doing, bro. Because like sometimes you honed in on, damn, I made 4% Monday, then I gave it back Tuesday, Wednesday. Now I'm sitting on 2%. But if you really zoom out and that's week 3 and you made 4%, now you're sitting on 10% for the week. It just gives you like that ability to be like, oh shit, bro. Let's be calm. Like we already sitting on 10% for the month, or you know what I mean, just calming yourself down. But okay, with that being said, bro, this is going to be one of the staples in our podcast with every guest that we have. Is called rapid fire questions. So you're going to have 30 seconds to answer each question. If you want to elaborate a bit on that question, because some of the questions are pretty short. If you want to give your best saying or whatever the case may be, just bear in mind that you have 30 seconds to a minute to answer each question. So, hey, bro, let's jump into it. The first one is, what is your favorite trading book, and what's your favorite lesson from that trading book?
My favorite trading book. There's actually one. Sorry, I'm just going to get my notes out.
30 seconds running.
Trading Psychology, Mark Douglas. And I think my favorite lesson that came out of it, I spoke on it earlier, was the gutter principle. How bad do things have to get before you're willing to do anything? And that's all that trading is, guys. Like at some point, it ends up not being about how good you are at the skill. It's how good you are at managing yourself. And if you don't manage yourself, you're not going anywhere. That's it.
Boom. Next question. Worst trading habit you had to break up until today?
Over leveraging. Over leveraging 100%. Like now when I over leverage, I still have those days where I will lose 2.5% because I became too confident. But those now happen, very not as much as I used to. These days I'm losing 1% or 1.5% at most. So yeah, still over leveraging. I still do have those bad days, but not as much.
And then the last and final question: one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self when you started trading?
Time. I think time, gents. When we all start this thing, we think, 2 or 3 years, we're in the game. Man will have his 911 after trading for 3 years. But that's all it is. It's literally like anything else that you're gonna do. It needs you to be disciplined. It needs you to give it the time that it deserves, and this thing has to become your life essentially. No one is gonna print out money. It doesn't just fall out of anywhere. It's a simple act of pressing a button, either buying or selling, but it takes time to learn why you're buying or selling. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me is just patience. I think that's where my over leveraging comes from. It was just a lack of patience. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. I would have told myself to be patient.
Okay. Shout out
Thank
NK,
you.
bro. Shout out. So, hey, bro, all I can say is thank you for the episode. I don't know if Sam want to say anything before we wrap up, but Sam?
Yeah, no, shout out, bro. I think banger first episode. I'm sure the audience are gonna love it. If you guys enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it on the socials. If you want to follow NK, NVM_Mfeka, TikTok, IG, Twitter, or X. And of course, remember, guys, consistency is the choice you make when you start doing the things you know you should be doing day in and day out.